Why was she even here? That was the question echoing across the sacred range at Storm Ridge Naval Base. It wasn't whispered, it wasn't spoken aloud, it was etched into the silence, carried in the weight of every glance, every dismissive smirk. 12 of the Navy's finest snipers lay prone across the firing line, their rifles aligned with impossible distances, their reputations sharpened through deployments that would never make the news. And now, without warning, without explanation, a stranger had walked into their sanctuary. Monroe, just a specialist at least on paper, less than 2 years of visible service, a rookie in their eyes, a boot. She felt the air tighten the moment she crossed the checkpoint, heat pressing against her skin, salt wind whipping from the Atlantic, pulling at her ponytail. Every step she took carried the weight of judgment. Men didn't even need to say it. She could read it in the way their fingers twitched near triggers, in how their eyes flicked up and down her frame, dismissing her like an extra in the wrong movie. But she didn't break stride, didn't blink, didn't let the discomfort in her chest show. At the gate, Sergeant Brooks blocked her path. He was solid, broad, his jaw set with that familiar blend of skepticism and contempt. His voice carried across the line like a blade dragged against steel. ID. She presented it, hand, calm tone. Specialist Monroe reporting as ordered, 800 hours. Brooks studied the card, then studied her, then looked again as if the very idea insulted him. He lifted his voice deliberately, making sure the firing line could hear every word. You're in the wrong place, specialist. This isn't for beginners. No laughter yet, but the kindling was stacked, waiting for a spark. Extended the folded paper she carried, the official orders. Authorization from Admiral. The words seemed absurd even as she spoke them. One of the Navy's highest-ranking officers signing orders for a specialist barely out of boot. It didn't add up. Not to them. Not to Brooks. He snatched the paper like it carried disease, his expression shifting from annoyance to disbelief to open irritation. "Chief," he barked over his shoulder, "we have a situation." The line stilled. Master Chief rose slowly from where he'd been correcting wind calls. He was broad-shouldered, silver hair close-cropped, a face carved from decades of sun and sand and snow. Was the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice. Authority radiated from him in silence, like the faint hum of a storm building over the horizon. He approached, heavy steps, narrowed eyes fixed on. "What's the problem, Brooks?" "This boot claims she's supposed to train here. Says it's straight from Admiral himself." Took the document, scanned it. His jaw flexed once, then tightened. His eyes lifted, pinning in place. "Specialist Monroe," he said slowly, "care to explain how a rookie with less than 2 years of service ends up on my firing line?" The question wasn't really a question. It was a test, a warning. Stood at perfect parade rest, her voice even, steady. "Not my place to question Admiral's directives, Master Chief." For a moment there was silence. Then it came, low, sharp laughter rolling across the range. Not just amusement, contempt wrapped in humor. Circled her like a predator testing prey. "This range is sacred ground," he said. "Men have bled for the privilege to shoot here. Every operator here has years of advanced training, multiple deployments, confirmed kills at distances you can't even imagine. And you think you belong." Didn't flinch, she didn't meet his eyes either. Neutral expression, neutral tone. "I understand, sir." "Do you?" His voice cut. "Because I'm not sure the Admiral does. This isn't a photo op for recruitment brochures." More laughter, louder this time. Stayed still, but inside her pulse thrummed. She had rehearsed this moment in her head, late nights in barracks rooms, mornings during runs when her lungs burned and her legs screamed. She'd known the second she received those orders, the second she saw his name at the bottom of the page, that this would not be a welcome. It would be a trial by fire, and she wasn't wrong. His gaze slid toward the armory rack. His smile was cruel but calculated. "And what exactly do you think you're going to shoot with today? We don't keep .22s around for beginners. I'll use what's assigned, Master Chief. Her answer landed like a stone in water, flat, but it rippled across the men. One of the best shots on the line chuckled. Come on, Chief, let her try, could use some entertainment. Paused, then slowly, deliberately. Why not? Follow me, Monroe, let's see what you're made of. She followed. Each step forward carried the weight of 12 men watching, waiting for her stumble, waiting for her weakness to reveal itself. She didn't give them one. At the weapons rack spread his arm. Take your pick. Though I should warn you, these rifles aren't like the trainers you probably touched in school. Scan the rifles. Sleek, brutal lines of engineering designed for death at a distance. She ran her hand over the familiar contours, calculations running silently through her mind. She already knew which one she would choose. The MRAD, .338 Norma Magnum. Silence, then laughter louder than before. She's joking, said. That rifle will knock her flat on her ass. Bold choice, specialist, said, raising an eyebrow. Sure you wouldn't prefer something lighter? I'm comfortable with the... There it was again, calm, steady, not defensive, not arrogant, just sure. His eyes flicked once, almost imperceptible. Then he nodded, your funeral. The weapons officer handed her the MRAD, heavy, brutal, but accepted it without struggle, her arms steady, movements deliberate as she checked the chamber, the bolt, the bipod. Not a rookie's fumbling, not hesitation. Smooth, practiced fluidity. Someone muttered about YouTube videos. Another snorted. Pointed toward the line. Position 6, target at 2,600 meters. The men exchanged glances. Even for them, even for this place, that distance was unforgiving. Crosswinds howling off the Atlantic made it nearly impossible. Position 6 was the hardest lane for a reason. Walked there without a word, kneeling, setting the bipod, lowering her body prone, every movement economical, efficient. She settled into position, her cheek against the stock, her breathing slow. One shot, Monroe called, make it count. Through her scope, the world narrowed. The ocean blurred into horizon. The steel plate target shimmered faintly in the distance. So far it seemed unreal. She steadied her breathing, the sound of the men's murmurs behind her dissolving into nothing. They thought she was praying. They thought she was stalling. She was calculating. Wind drift, effect, humidity, temperature shift. Every subtle factor her father had once drilled into her, every number she had memorized in lonely hours. She waited, long enough that impatience built behind her, long enough for Brooks to mutter, today would be nice. And then stillness, her breath paused between heartbeats, the wind softened. Squeezed the trigger. The roared. The recoil slammed against her shoulder, but she absorbed it, her body flowing with it rather than resisting. Silence, 3 seconds, 4, 5. Then ting. The sound of steel struck center mass, clear, unmistakable. The line froze. Direct hit, the range officer confirmed. 2,600 meters, dead center. For a moment, time itself seemed to hold. His face was unreadable, his voice low and flat, lucky shot. Rose, clearing though with precise efficiency. She looked at him directly, her tone even. Permission to continue the qualification, Master Chief. The question was more than audacity. It was defiance wrapped in professionalism. It said, this wasn't luck. This was just the beginning. The range was silent. 12 men reassessed what they had just witnessed, some skeptical, some shaken, and one, studying her with an intensity that suggested curiosity had just eclipsed contempt, stood in the middle of their disbelief, silent, still. Inside, her heart pounded against her ribs, adrenaline roaring like the rifle's recoil, but she didn't show it. Not here, not yet. Because the truth was, she hadn't come to Storm Ridge to impress anyone. She had come for something else entirely, something none of them were ready to know. Not yet. What do you do when everything you know gets shattered in a single heartbeat? That was the question hanging over the sacred range at Storm Ridge. The shot had landed. 2,600 meters, dead center, first try. No hesitation, no stumble, just the sound of steel ringing across the Atlantic wind like a bell tolling for the end of certainty. The men stood in silence. Snipers who had survived deployments, who had stared down death, who had lived their careers knowing where the limits were, suddenly staring at someone who had just erased those limits with one squeeze of a trigger. Master Chief didn't move at first. His face was stone, unreadable. But his eyes, those sharp, weathered eyes, betrayed something. Not anger, not even disbelief, something closer to unease. "Stand down, specialist," he said finally. His voice was flat, stripped of the mocking edge it carried before. Rose cleared the rifle and set the safety. Every movement deliberate, professional. Her voice was calm. "With respect, sir, I'm already qualified. Advanced sniper school. Top of class." The words hung heavy. Brooks barked out a laugh, too sharp, too forced. "That's impossible. You've barely been in long enough to spell sniper." His eyes flicked toward him, then away. "My service record is partly classified." That word, classified, changed everything. A ripple moved across the group. Classified meant shadows. Classified meant something beyond training manuals and deployments everyone could read about. Narrowed his gaze. "Everyone off the range," he ordered suddenly. 15-minute break, Monroe with me." The men hesitated, reluctant to leave. They wanted to watch. They needed answers. But the Master Chief's tone left no room for argument. One by one, they filed off the line, casting looks over their shoulders lingered longest, eyes narrowed, like a man watching a puzzle piece that refused to fit. Led her to a small observation post overlooking the range. The door shut with a heavy thud, cutting off the restless murmurs outside. For a moment, silence, just the faint hum of ventilation. Stood there, arms folded, his massive frame filling the space. His voice came low, measured. Cut the bullshit. Who are you really?" Met his eyes, her voice didn't waver. "Exactly who my file says. Specialist Monroe, U.S. Navy." "No specialist makes that shot." His voice hardened. "Most of my instructors couldn't make that shot. I had good teachers." "Who?" Her expression didn't change. "Need to know, Master Chief." His jaw tightened. He'd spent decades breaking rookies, reading lies, seeing through bravado. But with her, nothing. Just calm neutrality, like a locked door he couldn't pry open. Finally he exhaled, slow, frustration curling at the edges. "Fine, back to the range. You've earned one more shot." When they emerged again, the atmosphere was different. No more smirks, no more laughter. The men gathered in clusters, restless, uncertain. The sound of boots on gravel was sharp in the stillness. His voice cut through the tension. "Monroe, back to position 6. New target 3,000 meters." The word struck like a hammer, even blinked. 3,000, that wasn't a test. That was a trap, beyond effective range, beyond reasonable. "That's impossible in these conditions," someone muttered. "For most shooters," said, his eyes never leaving. 30 seconds, no waiting for the wind to play nice. It wasn't just a challenge. It was a gauntlet designed to break her. Walked back to position 6. No hesitation, no visible fear. Inside, her chest tightened, her pulse beating against her ribs. 3,000, moving target, crosswinds slicing off the Atlantic. 30 seconds. She lowered herself to the ground, settled in, scope up. Knelt beside her, his voice low, clinical. Variable wind, 15 to 20 knots, humidity rising, lateral target, irregular intervals. He listed every factor like weights piled onto her shoulders. This wasn't instruction. It was sabotage. "Understood," she replied. 20 seconds. She steadied her breathing, calculated faster than thought. Air density, drift, drop, microbursts across the horizon. She didn't fight the pounding of her heart, she synchronized with it. 10 seconds. The wind shifted suddenly, hard left, a gust that would throw any shot off course. 5 seconds. Her finger tightened on the trigger, adjusted once, micro-shift. She fired. The roared again, the recoil slammed back, silence followed, 3 seconds, 4. Ting! The sound was faint, distant, but unmistakable. Steel struck. Center hit. Direct hit, the range officer called. His voice cracked in disbelief. 3,012 meters, moving target neutralized. The line erupted in chaos, swore aloud. Jaw dropped. Brooks looked pale, as if the world had just tilted sideways. His face remained unreadable, but his eyes betrayed something different this time. Not disbelief, not even unease, something like fear. He leaned close to, voice low, sharp. That shot is technically impossible. Improbable, corrected, her tone quiet even, not impossible. Who taught you? His voice was urgent now, too urgent. Who are you working for? Before she could answer, a voice rang out from the far end of the range. She works for me, Master Chief. Every head turned. Admiral walked across the gravel, his presence commanding, every step deliberate. At his side, a tall civilian in plain clothes, not military but unmistakably military. The bearing, the eyes, the quiet authority, he screamed experience. Admiral on deck, barked, and the men snapped to attention. At ease, said. His gaze swept across the line, then settled on. I see Specialist Monroe is demonstrating her capabilities. The civilian stepped forward. His face was weathered, unreadable. His voice calm, precise. She's being modest. Prior to instructor status, she held the record for confirmed kills in the Mountain Theater. 32 confirmed beyond 2,000 meters, several beyond 2,500, 3 beyond 3,000. The silence was absolute. His eyes widened slightly. His voice came rough. The ghost program is a myth. The civilian smiled thinly. Is it? Suddenly everything shifted. The laughter, the mockery, the certainty that she didn't belong gone. In its place was something heavier, something had felt before. The weight of secrets revealed too soon. She straightened, meeting the eyes of every man watching her. For the first time since arriving, her lips curved into the faintest trace of a smile. Monroe, she said, her voice carried across the range. Former Ghost Program instructor, now heading the Advanced Integration Unit for Unconventional Long-Range Operations. The words landed like shockwaves. Every man stared at her differently now, not as a boot, not as a joke, but as something else entirely. A ghost? How do you measure respect? By rank, by reputation, or by the silence that follows a revelation too heavy for words? Storm Ridge had never been so quiet. The sound of the Atlantic wind carried across the range, tugging at uniforms, rattling loose gravel. But no one moved, no one spoke, because what had just been revealed didn't fit into the order of things. Monroe was no boot, no rookie, no lucky shooter. She was something else entirely, something most of them had whispered about but never truly believed existed. A ghost. His face remained impassive, but his jaw flexed. He'd spent years building Storm Ridge into sacred ground, the final proving place for the Navy's finest marksmen. And now, in the space of 2 impossible shots and a handful of words, the ground itself seemed to shift beneath his boots. Admiral's voice cut the silence. Calm, assured, clear the range, demonstration period is over. The snipers hesitated. They wanted more. They wanted answers, but command was command. Reluctantly, they filed back, murmurs trailing behind them like shadows. Only, and Brooks remained with, and the civilian, whose name was finally spoken aloud. Master Chief, the Admiral said, this is Director. He oversees specialized development programs. His handshake was curt, his eyes assessing. Your reputation precedes you. Wish I could say the same, replied cautiously. That's the point, said with a thin smile. Some reputations are meant to remain invisible. His eyes flicked toward. She stood at parade rest, expression neutral, but her posture radiated composure that no specialist should have carried. Specialist Monroe began. Major Monroe interrupted. His tone was sharp enough to cut steel. The words landed heavy. Major, not specialist, not boot. His jaw tightened. Her rank was for operational security, said simply. Her role here required cover, but make no mistake, she outranks most in this facility. For the first time, Brooks shifted visibly, his mouth falling open. He'd mocked her, dismissed her, spoken to her like dirt. And now he stood exposed, his contempt echoing back against his own face. His tone carried finality. Major Monroe has operational experience none of you can match. She's here to integrate ghost program methodologies into your training. Effective immediately, she assumes command of the advanced division. Master Chief, you'll serve as her executive officer. The silence that followed was suffocating. His pride buckled just for an instant. He'd commanded this range for 15 years. He'd bled for it, shaped its shooters. And now he was being told, not asked, to fall in line under someone who had walked in unannounced. But when his eyes met, he saw something there that disarmed him. Not arrogance, not victory, something closer to restraint. She wasn't gloating, she wasn't triumphant, she was simply steady. And that steadiness unnerved him more than any boast could have. "Understood, sir," said finally, though the words felt like iron in his mouth. Nodded, full integration within 90 days. Consider this non-negotiable. Brooks couldn't contain himself. "With respect, sir, the Master Chief has been in service over 20 years. There's no way she—" "Sergeant," snapped, his voice like a gunshot. "Do you want me to read her service record aloud? Even the unclassified portions would humble you." Brooks went pale, his jaw clicked shut. His eyes moved between them. Change is difficult, but war doesn't wait for comfort zones. The Ghost program exists because the old ceilings weren't enough. What you saw today, his eyes flicked too, that isn't exceptional in our program, that's baseline. The words struck harder than the shots themselves. Baseline. If what she had done was considered normal, then everything they thought they knew about the limits of human skill had just been obliterated. Close the exchange with finality. Debrief in the conference room, 0800 tomorrow, dismissed. The men dispersed reluctantly, still shaken, still processing. Only lingered. He approached, his voice low, quiet enough that only she could hear. "You could identify yourself immediately." Her answer was immediate, calm, and missed the chance to see how your team responds to a perceived outsider, to see how you treat someone you think doesn't belong. His brow furrowed. "And what did you learn?" "That has potential," she said simply. He questions from curiosity, not insecurity. Brooks is a problem, too bound by appearances. The others fall between. "And me," pressed. Glanced at him briefly, her green eyes steady. "Protective of your men, resistant to change, proud of your legacy, but not too proud to learn." "You got all that from one morning." "I got most of it before I ever set foot on your range, Master Chief." The words carried no malice, just fact, and somehow that made them cut deeper. That night the base hummed with whispers. In the mess hall, rumors twisted into myth. A mysterious woman appearing out of nowhere, shots no human could make. A classified program dragged into the light. Ate alone, as she often did. Isolation was familiar. It came with the revelation. The moment people learned who she really was, the space between them grew. Whispers replaced conversation. Distance replaced camaraderie. She didn't mind, not anymore. Solitude had always been safer. Until a tray clattered down across from her. Gunnery sergeant, young enough to still be shaped, old enough to know when to keep his mouth shut. Except tonight he didn't. "Mind if I sit, Major?" he asked, already lowering himself into the seat. Gestured with her fork, "Free country, Gunny." He studied her for a moment, searching for something in her face. So, you knew about all of us, our records, our scores, who we were. Yes, she said simply. And you let us make asses of ourselves. Her lips twitched, the faintest ghost of humor. You did that without my help. For the first time laughed, quiet, genuine, the tension broke. He lowered his voice. Look, I wanted to apologize. Some of the things said earlier, he hesitated. They were out of line. Set her fork down. You responded to what you thought was an intrusion. I expected nothing less. Still's eyes carried something else, respect. Not because she outranked him, not because of the shots, because she hadn't rubbed it in, because she carried power like a burden, not a weapon. Before he could speak again, appeared at the edge of the table. His presence was as heavy as the rifles they carried. Major Monroe, he said, a word. Nodded quickly, excusing himself, sat. His tone was blunt, stripped of pride. I reviewed the integration timeline. 90 days is aggressive. It can be done in 60, replied. 90 gives room for resistance. His eyes narrowed. Resistance. Human nature, Master Chief. People resist change, especially when it challenges their sense of mastery. His jaw tightened. You're not making this easy. Should I? Her voice was calm, unflinching. Would you respect me if I did? For a moment their eyes locked. Two veterans from different worlds. Two warriors measuring each other. And in that silence something shifted. Not acceptance. Not yet, but respect. The first brick laid on a foundation that would be tested, broken, rebuilt. The night wore on. Conversations in the mess hall turned to speculation, fear, awe, but didn't linger. She left quietly, the weight of memory pulling at her shoulders. Because there was something she hadn't told them, something hadn't revealed. She hadn't just trained ghosts. She had been one. And the truth about what that meant, about the missions, the sacrifices, the cost, was something no one here was ready to hear. Not yet. What if everything you believed about mastery was suddenly wrong? Couldn't shake the question. Not through the meeting, not through the mess hall whispers, not even as he tried to sleep in quarters that had always been his sanctuary. He'd seen rookies outshoot veterans before. Flukes happened, but this wasn't that. Monroe hadn't stumbled into skill. She carried it like a second skin. 2 impossible shots, no hesitation, no panic, just quiet certainty. And that rattled him more than he wanted to admit. So when dawn crept over, Storm Ridge was already awake. He wasn't scheduled. He didn't need to be, but pride wouldn't let him rest. He had to know, was she real, or was there something else at play? He found her at the range before the sun had fully broken the horizon. Mist clung to the ground, the air heavy with salt and silence. She was there already, as if she'd known he would come. Her posture relaxed, rifle case beside her, hair tied back in its neat, unassuming knot. No spectators, she asked softly, eyes scanning the empty range. This is between us, said. His voice was steady, though something deeper wavered. Professional to professional. Nodded once, approval maybe, or understanding. Set his rifle case on the bench, unlatched it with deliberate precision. His personal weapon, the one he'd carried across continents, deserts, jungles, the one he trusted when everything else fell apart. What's the challenge? Asked. 3 stages, said. Each harder than the last. We both shoot, compare results. And stakes. Her tone wasn't mocking, it was genuine curiosity. If you outshoot me in all 3, I'll back you fully. No resistance, no questions, total buy-in. And if you win even 1, then you accept my input on how this integration runs. You don't bulldoze my team, you adapt with me. Studied him for a long moment, then extended her hand. Deal. Her grip was firm, steady. No games, no hesitation. The first stage was simple by their standards. Stationary targets at 1,000 meters. Settled prone, his movements crisp, almost ritualistic. The rifle steadied against his shoulder, his breath slow. 3 shots, all within millimeters of center. Textbook perfection. Took her position next. Same target, same distance. Her shots mirrored his exactly, 3 precise holes, so tight they seemed almost one. Exhaled, no surprise there. She'd matched him, but he had expected that. Stage 2, moving targets at 1500. This was his ground. Years of experience tracking silhouettes through shifting winds, accounting for erratic motion. He fired, groupings tight, deadly accurate, his confidence steadied. Followed, her shots were fast, too fast, frowned as he watched through his spotting scope. Precision wasn't supposed to look like that. It was supposed to be slow, controlled. And yet every round struck home, perfect hits. She wasn't breaking rules. She was playing by rules he didn't even understand. Stage 3, extreme distance, 2200 meters, shifting winds rising with the sun, the kind of shot that separated legends from everyone else. When first, his process was slow, deliberate, adjust, breathe, fire. His first shot struck just right of center, second left, third dead center, 3 hits, world class, the kind of shooting that had built his reputation. He stepped back, heart steady, pride intact. Let's see her match that. Lowered herself to the ground, scoped in, and then she did something that made his breath catch. She didn't wait, she didn't measure with prolonged calculations. She fired once, twice, 3 times, rapid succession, faster than doctrine allowed. His jaw clenched, she'd rushed it. No one shoots precision at that pace. Then the confirmation came through the electronic system. 3 shots, all dead center, touching, perfect. Stared at the screen, at her, at the impossible truth in front of him. That, his voice caught. He forced it out again. That violates every principle of long-range shooting. Rose smoothly, packing her rifle with practiced ease. Conventional principles, she corrected. Our methodology is different. We don't fight the body, we harness it. We don't pause between heartbeats. We synchronize with them. We don't hold our breath, we use its rhythm. We don't resist the body's movement, we incorporate it. Shook his head, disbelief and awe colliding. That's impossible to teach. Difficult, she said softly, not impossible. For the first time in his career, felt small on a range. He had never been outshot like that, not in 23 years of service, not by anyone. Now he had. His voice was quiet, not unkind. The question isn't whether I outshot you. The question is what you're going to do with that information. Was silent for a long time. Then he straightened, decision settling in his chest like stone. I'm going to learn, he said, his voice steady, his pride finally yielding. Then I'm going to make sure my team learns. You have my full support, Major Monroe. He extended his hand. Shook it, but as their grips tightened, added one more thing. On one condition. You tell me the truth about who you really are, not the sanitized version, the real story, tonight, 2,000 hours, your quarters. Studied him, weighing the risk, then nodded slowly. Agreed, but what I tell you doesn't leave that room. Understood. They walked back together across the misty range. For the first time, not as adversaries, not as rivals, but as equals, 2 different worlds converging. Neither spoke, neither needed to. But knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever story she told him tonight would change everything. And deep down, a part of him wasn't sure he wanted to hear it. What does a ghost look like when the mask comes off? That was the question gnawing at as he stood outside her quarters at precisely 2,000 hours. He'd faced insurgents, cartel, warlords who thought they were untouchable. He walked into ambushes, felt the hum of bullets crack past his head, carried men bleeding out in his arms. But standing at Monroe's door, hand raised to knock, he realized he felt something unfamiliar. Apprehension. He knocked once. Enter, came her voice, calm, controlled, always controlled. The door swung open. Her room was stark, almost sterile. No decorations, no clutter. Just the bare bones of a life spent moving too fast to settle. One photo stood out, a framed picture of a young girl standing beside a tall man in hunting gear, father and daughter, both with the same sharp eyes. Gestured toward a chair at a small table. A bottle of bourbon and two glasses rested there like she'd been expecting him. Drink. Thank you, ma'am. He sat, took the glass she poured, felt the burn slide down his throat. What I'm about to tell you, she began, is classified well beyond your clearance. The only reason you're hearing it is because I need you to understand, fully. Otherwise, this integration will fail. Nodded once, no bravado, no resistance, just readiness. His eyes flicked toward the photograph, her voice softened. My father was William Monroe, Wild Bill Monroe, Marine Corps sniper during Desert Storm. Straightened, recognition immediate. The same Monroe, he practically wrote the book on desert environment shooting, disappeared around 2003. Lips tightened. He didn't disappear, he was recruited into something new. Leaned forward, caught by the shift in her tone. After 9/11, she said, certain people in military intelligence knew conventional warfare wasn't enough. They started pulling together the best shooters from every branch. My father was one of the first. Back then it wasn't the Ghost program. It was called Project Small, experimental, hidden. Absorbed this, their mission. To break every boundary of precision shooting, abandon doctrine, rebuild from the ground up. They weren't teaching sniping anymore. They were rewriting it. She paused, took a sip of bourbon. Her gaze was steady, but her eyes carried something heavier. My mother died when I was 7, cancer. After that, it was just me and my dad. He didn't want this life for me, tried to keep me out of it. But when you grow up around ballistics charts and wind meters, around men who speak in calculations instead of words, you absorb things. Saw it then, the girl in the photograph, standing too straight for her age, eyes already sharper than they should been. By 12, continued, I could calculate bullet drop faster than some adults with a calculator. By 14, I was out shooting his junior instructors. A sad smile flickered, faint and gone. He wanted me in college, wanted me far away from rifles and targets, but at 17, I hit 1,800 meters in an informal competition, beat 3 Special Forces qualified shooters. Shook his head slowly. 17. The program director was watching, said simply, I was recruited the next day. That's not possible, minimum service age. Rules don't apply to ghosts, Master Chief. Her voice carried no pride, only fact. They gave me a manufactured identity, accelerated my training. My first deployment came before my 19th birthday. The words hit him like cold water. A teenager, deployed into operations no one even admitted existed. That's illegal, immoral. His gaze didn't falter. Both, but effective. I had 23 confirmed eliminations by the time I was 21. Gripped his glass, bourbon burning in his chest. And your father? Her voice changed then, softer, waited. He tried to stop it at first, but then he believed it was inevitable, that if I was going to be pulled in, he'd make sure I was prepared. She looked down for a moment. Her fingers brushed the edge of the photo frame. He died in 2012, officially a training accident in Arizona. His voice was quiet and unofficially. Her jaw tightened. Operation compromised, he didn't make it back. For the first time, saw the crack in her armor, just a flicker, pain that hadn't dulled even after a decade. I'm sorry, he said simply. She nodded once. It was a long time ago. After that, I gave myself fully to the program. Missions in places I can't name. Targets who officially died from other causes. For years, I didn't exist. I was a ghost, and ghosts don't get memorials. Silence hung heavy between them. Stared at the photograph again, the man who'd written the rules and the daughter who'd been forced to break them. Finally, he asked the question pressing hardest. So why now? Why reveal yourself? Why integrate with conventional forces? His eyes hardened, but beneath it he caught something else. Weariness. Because the advantage is gone. Our adversaries have begun developing their own ghost programs. We've seen operations that mirror ours almost exactly. If we don't expand, scale up, we lose the edge. And when we lose the edge, wars change. People die. Nodded slowly, he understood more than she knew. And you, he asked, why step into the light after 14 years in shadows? For the first time her composure cracked, just slightly, a flash of vulnerability in her voice. Because ghosts get tired too, Master Chief. Burnout is real, and because, her eyes flicked again to the photograph. He would wanted me to build something that lasts, something bigger than myself. The silence between them softened. Two warriors from different worlds, both carrying ghosts of their own. Poured them both another drink. Tomorrow, integration begins. Your men will resist, some more than others. I need you leading by example. They'll follow if I do, said. One more thing. Her voice sharpened again, all trace of vulnerability gone. There are people in our own services who don't want this program to succeed. People who think ghosts should remain in the dark. They may try to sabotage us. Frowned. You think that kind of resistance runs that deep? I know it does. Her eyes locked on his. Watch for unusual transfers, malfunctions, administrative roadblocks. The enemy isn't always out there. Sometimes it's in here. Nodded, understood. For a long moment, they sat in silence. 2 glasses of bourbon, 2 different legacies, and the shadow of a program built on secrets pressing in around them. Finally asked the question that had haunted him since the shot at 3,000 meters. That hit, moving target, in those conditions, was it really you? No tech, no classified gear. For the first time since he'd met her, smiled. A genuine smile. That's the question, isn't it? Where does human capability end and technology begin? The truth is, the line keeps moving. What was impossible yesterday becomes difficult today. What's difficult today becomes standard tomorrow. And tomorrow, she leaned back, her voice soft, almost poetic. Tomorrow, we redraw the line again. Left her quarters later that night with his mind racing. The story she'd told him wasn't just revelation. It was a warning and a promise. Because tomorrow, the ghosts would step into the light. And when they did, nothing at Storm Ridge would ever be the same. How do you teach men who believe they've already reached the peak? That was the quiet question carried with her as she walked toward the firing range the next morning. Pre-dawn darkness still clung to Storm Ridge, the horizon just beginning to glow. The air was thick with salt and silence. Men stood assembled in formation, their faces unreadable, pride disguised as neutrality, skepticism hidden behind discipline. Stepped forward, his voice carried across the line, firm but steady. Listen up, everything changes today. Everything you think you know about long-range marksmanship, every trick, every principle, you treat it as foundation, not ceiling. Major Monroe is in command now. Her methodologies will push you past what you think is possible. A ripple of unease moved across the group. Brooks shifted visibly, his jaw set. Emerged from the shadows then, moving with quiet confidence, dressed in standard-issue training gear. No insignia of superiority, nothing to suggest anything extraordinary, except the memory of shots that still rang in every man's head. She stood before them, her voice calm but sharp. What you've been taught is the best conventional doctrine in the world, but it was designed in the 1960s and 70s, incrementally improved, never fundamentally reimagined. That ends now. Some shifted uncomfortably, raised an eyebrow. Brooks scoffed quietly, but sharp glance silenced him. Walked slowly down the line, her presence controlled, her words deliberate. You've been taught to minimize human flaws, shoot between heartbeats, hold your breath, freeze your body, eliminate variables. She stopped, turned, her green eyes swept across them. We don't do that. We invert the approach. Instead of fighting your body, you learn to synchronize with it. Instead of eliminating variables, you learn to incorporate them. The human body isn't the obstacle. It's the most sophisticated targeting system ever developed. Silent, a few skeptical glances exchanged. "With respect, Major," finally spoke, "that sounds more like philosophy than practical technique." Nodded once. "Fair observation. That's why we don't start with theory. We start with demonstration." She turned to Target's Master Chief. Gave the order. The team moved into motion, setting up mobile silhouettes across distances from 100 to 2,500 meters. By the time they were ready, dawn had broken, the sky glowing pale gold over the Atlantic. Selected a standard-issue M110 sniper rifle. No exotic gear, no special rounds. She held it up for them to see. Standard rifle, standard ammo, standard conditions. The only difference is the approach. She lay prone, scoped in, and then she moved. 5 shots in rapid succession. Fluid, almost rhythmic. The sound of rounds cutting air, brass clattering against gravel. 5 silhouettes dropped in order. Each hit center mass. No prolonged setup. No pauses between breaths. Just motion flowing into accuracy. The range fell silent. Brooks broke it first. Loud, defiant. "Not possible, not with that platform, not at those ranges, not that fast." Rose calm. "And yet you witnessed it. The question isn't whether it's possible. The question is how quickly you'll learn to do the same." Stepped forward, his voice steady, curious. "May I try, ma'am?" Gestured, "Take position." He lay down, shouldered the rifle, and aimed at a target. Knelt beside him, her voice quiet, instructive. "First principle, breathe normally. Don't fight it. Don't hold it. Synchronize with it. Let your body's rhythm guide the trigger press." Hesitated, skeptical, fired, missed. "You reverted at the last second," observed. Tensed, tried to pause, try again. This time let your breath flow through the shot. Steadied, breathed, fired. The target rang, not center mass, but a hit. He looked up in surprise. "I fired on exhalation, completely opposite of what I've been taught." Nodded, "And yet it worked. Traditional doctrine fights the body, ours works with it." One by one, the others tried. Some adapted quickly, their first hits surprising them. Others struggled, muscle memory clashing with new instinct. But by sunrise, even the most doubtful had glimpsed something. Moments where targets once thought untouchable suddenly fell. All except Brooks. His shots were sloppy, his frustration visible. He wasn't just failing to adapt, he was refusing. When the session ended, addressed the group. "This is just the beginning. Over the next 90 days, you'll unlearn old habits and master new capabilities. It won't be easy, but by the end, you'll be operating at a level you currently believe is impossible." The men dispersed, buzzing with quiet disbelief, all except Brooks. He lingered, jaw tight, eyes hard. Watched him, approached. "He's not going to come around." "I know," said quietly, "but we'll give him 1 more week. If he can't adapt, he'll need to be reassigned." Nodded, agreed. "The others are showing progress already, especially." Allowed the faintest smile. "He'll be your first instructor once the program expands. Natural teacher, open mind." They began packing up, discussing progress. Neither noticed the figure standing back in the shadows, watching. Brooks. His hand moved subtly, slipping a secure phone from his pocket. He lifted it briefly, the faint glow of a transmitted message catching the dawn light. The message was simple. Integration proceeding rapidly. Countermeasures recommended. Time sensitive. The reply came seconds later. Understood, assets en route. Containment authorized. Brooks slid the phone back into his pocket and walked away, his decision sealed. If the chain of command wouldn't protect tradition, he would, even if it meant betraying everything he'd sworn to serve. What he couldn't know was that his betrayal had already set in motion forces bigger than he could control. Forces that would soon test Monroe beyond the range, beyond doctrine, beyond even the Ghost program itself. And the real war, the one fought not against distance, but against betrayal, was about to begin. What happens when the enemy isn't outside the wire but standing beside you in uniform? Storm Ridge was never meant to feel unsafe. It was training ground, proving ground, not battlefield. Yet as the weeks passed, unease crept in like fog, rifles malfunctioning without reason, ammunition shipments delayed, communications blacking out at crucial moments. At first thought it coincidence, the natural friction of a system under pressure, but didn't believe in coincidence, not anymore. "They're probing," she said one evening, spreading reports across the table in the command office. "Testing us. Small failures, subtle enough to pass as mistakes, but deliberate. Scan the logs. 3 rifles, same malfunction. 2 separate ammo batches with near-identical defects. A secure comms line dropping only during classified transmissions. Too neat. Too clean." "You think someone's feeding intel out," he said. "I know it," replied. Her voice was quiet, but her eyes were steel. "The question is who?" The answer revealed itself faster than expected. It was during a late-night exercise. This unit was running simulated Overwatch drills and observed from the control tower. Everything was routine until the alarm blared, perimeter breach. Not simulation, real. The response was immediate. Teams scrambled. Floodlights cut across the compound, catching 3 figures in black slipping through the fence line. Too professional for amateurs. Too bold for coincidence. "Grab the radio. Alpha Team, intercept North Sector. Lethal force authorized." Was already moving, rifle in hand, eyes scanning the horizon. She tracked the intruders through the chaos, movements calculated, precise. Then she saw it. Brooks positioned on the south wall, not firing, not moving, watching. Her gut clenched, instinct screamed louder than reason. She said sharply, "Pull Brooks off the line now." But it was too late. The intruders split, 2 engaging Alpha Team, the 3rd slipping toward the operations building. Brooks shifted then, finally moving, but not to stop the infiltrator, to guide him, directing with hand signals so subtle most wouldn't notice. Noticed. She sprinted, faster than doctrine allowed, rifle tight, heart pounding with the rhythm she'd trained into herself since childhood. She cut the angle, sighted, and fired. The infiltrator dropped 3 meters from the building's door, dead before he hit the ground. Brooks turned, shock flashing across his face, but not at the death, at being caught. Saw it too. His voice roared across the comms. "Brooks, stand down, that's an order." For a moment Brooks froze, then he bolted. Chaos erupted. Some men pursued, others held the perimeter, but didn't hesitate. She chased. Through the compound, across gravel and shadow, boots pounding in rhythm. Brooks ran hard, desperation fueling him. Closed the distance, each breath measured, body and rifle moving as one. She tackled him at the fence line. Both crashed hard, gravel tearing skin. He fought like a cornered animal, fists wild, teeth bared. But she was trained for more than distance. She rolled, pinned him, forearm across his throat, rifle pressed into his ribs. "Why?" she demanded, her voice low, lethal. His eyes blazed. "Because you don't belong here. None of this does. Ghosts don't belong in daylight." Arrived seconds later, men at his back. Guns trained on Brooks, confusion and betrayal twisting across their faces. "Get him up," ordered, his voice shook with fury. "Cuff him, secure him." The men obeyed, silent, their trust shattered. As Brooks was dragged away, stood, her breath steadying. Met her eyes. In them he saw not triumph, not vindication, just the heavy shadow of inevitability. "This was never about one man," she said quietly. "He's just a symptom. The infection runs deeper." His jaw tightened. "Then we cut it out, whatever it takes." But cutting it out wasn't simple. Interrogation revealed little. Brooks clammed up, pride and fear locking his tongue. Only one phrase slipped through before he was hauled off to secure confinement. "They're already here." The words echoed in his mind long after. Later that night, sitting alone in her quarters, she felt the weight of it, the betrayal, the breach, the confirmation of everything she'd warned about. She poured herself a drink but didn't touch it. Instead, her eyes fell again on the photo of her father. What would he have said? That betrayal was inevitable, that programs built on shadows could never survive daylight. Her throat tightened. She whispered softly into the silence, "I'm trying, Dad. I'm trying to make this work." A knock broke her thoughts. His face drawn heavy, he stepped in, closed the door. "Command's furious," he said. "They want answers, they want control, but's buying us time." Nodded, "We don't have much." "No," said, his voice softened almost reluctantly. "But after tonight they'll follow you, the men, even looked at you different. You saved this base. You saved them." His eyes dropped. "I didn't save Brooks." Exhaled. "You can't save everyone, Major. Sometimes the uniform hides more than loyalty. Sometimes it hides rot." For the first time since he'd met her, reached out, resting a heavy hand on her shoulder. Not command, not challenge, solidarity. "We rooted out," he said firmly, "together." Met his eyes. For the first time she let her guard slip, just slightly, enough to let the weight of the night show, enough to let someone else carry it for a moment. The silence between them carried more than words ever could. But outside, beyond the fences, unseen eyes watched. A satellite phone clicked. A voice whispered across secure channels. Phase 1 confirmed, breach successful, asset contained. Phase 2 authorized. The war had already shifted. Storm Ridge wasn't training ground anymore. It was battlefield. And Monroe was no longer just an instructor. She was the target. What do you do when the war you trained for arrives not on foreign soil, but at your own doorstep? Storm Ridge didn't sleep after the breach. The perimeter was doubled, patrols constant, weapons checked and rechecked. But unease clung to the base like smoke. No one said it aloud, but they all felt it. The truth Brooks had spoken before they dragged him away. "They're already here." Felt it most of all. Not paranoia. Instinct. The same instinct that had kept her alive across nameless borders and missions. She moved through the base like a shadow, eyes scanning, ears tuned to every shift of wind. It came 3 nights later. The first sign was power. Lights flickering across the compound, then snapping dark. Generators silent. Silence swallowing everything. Then the comms dead. His voice carried across the barracks, hard and urgent. "Contact, defensive positions." The night erupted. Gunfire cracked from the tree line, tracer rounds streaking through blackness. Shouts, boots pounding gravel. Storm Ridge wasn't a range anymore. It was a battlefield. Was already moving, rifle in hand, eyes cutting through chaos. She reached the command center, saw coordinating men calm under fire. He groaned faster than she'd hoped. "North fence breached," someone shouted. Sprinted shapes emerged from the darkness, figures in black, disciplined, professional. Not raiders, not amateurs. These were trained. Their movements too precise. Their assault too coordinated. Phase 2. She dropped prone, scope to eye, and fired. 1, 2, 3. Each round found its mark, intruders crumpling into shadows, but more came, relentless. Appeared beside her, his rifle barking, his jaw set. "You were right. This isn't sabotage. It's an op, full scale." His voice was calm even as the battle raged. "They want the program destroyed before it takes root. Storm Ridge is the test bed. If they kill it here, it never spreads." Reloaded, teeth gritted. "Over my dead body." The fight raged for hours. Men who had once doubted her now moved under her command without hesitation. His voice cut through chaos like steel. Calm, precise. Every order measured, every shot intentional. She was no longer just instructor or phantom rank. She was commander. But even as they held, she felt it, the weight of inevitability. This wasn't random. Someone on the inside had orchestrated it. Brooks hadn't acted alone. It was confirmed when she reached the armory, the lock already breached, ammunition crates overturned, and in the shadows another face she knew. Yep. The disbelief hit harder than the gunfire. He'd been steady, quiet, dependable. She trusted him. Why? She demanded, rifle trained steady. His eyes were wild, desperate. Because ghosts don't belong, you think we don't see it. You'll erase us. Everything we built, every rep, every sacrifice, it means nothing if you rewrite the book. It was never about erasing, said, voice sharp with fury and pain. It was about evolving, surviving. If we don't adapt, we lose. Hands trembled, not with fear, with conviction. Then maybe losing is better than becoming, whatever you are. His voice boomed from behind her. Drop it now. But he didn't. His rifle twitched upward. Fired first. The silence after was deafening. Lay still, his conviction bled into gravel. His face was grim, but his voice steady. You didn't have a choice. Her voice was hollow. There's always a choice, that's the curse. By dawn, the fight was over. Storm Ridge stood battered but unbroken. Bodies of intruders lined the fence. Smoke curled upward where generators had been sabotaged. The men were exhausted, bloodied, but alive. And through it all stood silent, watching, breathing, carrying the weight. Later in the debrief the words came clinical. Losses, breaches, security recommendations, reinforcement orders, but barely heard them. Her eyes drifted to her men, their men, who now looked at her with something she hadn't seen before. Not fear, not awe, respect. The kind built in fire, not lecture. When the meeting ended, lingered beside her. His voice was quieter than usual, carrying something heavier. You kept us alive. Shook her head. We kept each other alive. That's what this was always about. Studied her, saw the exhaustion etched into her features. Not physical, emotional. The cost of ghosts stepping into daylight. You know what they'll say, don't you? He asked. That it was reckless. That Storm Ridge shouldn't have been touched by this. That the program invites chaos. Maybe, said. He paused, then added softly, or maybe they'll say it's the future, and that we survived because of it. His eyes shifted toward the horizon, where the first light of morning broke across the Atlantic. For a moment, the base was quiet again. Wounded men being treated. Fallen comrades carried with dignity. Survivors standing a little taller. Her voice was almost a whisper. My father used to tell me, sometimes progress feels like betrayal, but survival has no sentiment. It just asks one question. Did you endure? Stood beside her, silent, letting the words settle. The sun rose higher. The men dispersed, tending to duties, patching fences, cleaning rifles. Storm Ridge breathed again, but alive. Remained a moment longer, staring at the light over the water. She thought of her father, of Brooks, of every ghost who had walked before and vanished into silence. And she thought of the men who now looked at her not as outsider, not as phantom, but as one of them. Her voice was quiet, almost prayer, almost promise. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And with that, she turned from the horizon, ready to face whatever waited in the daylight.